Alright, for this video we're going to jump to chapter 2 and we are going to start a whole section on solving equations. This video really should be reviewed because it's only going to take 1 or 2 steps to solve these equations. And then we're going to be working with this for at least the next week and a half, and we'll build all the way up to where we have 4 or 5 steps to solve an equation. Okay, and I'm going to skip down to goal. For any equation, okay, what we want to do is we want to isolate the variable. Now, isolate means you want to get it by itself. Because if you get it by itself, then you know what x equals. So we want to find out what number that x has to equal so that both sides of the equation equal each other. Now, how are we going to do that? How are we going to isolate the variable? Well, this is where we use the inverse operations. I'll put it up here. This takes a little bit more space when I write it. It's a little bit more sloppier. Inverse operations, what this means is we're going to use this. I'm just say this. Use this to isolate the variable. Remember, isolate means you want to get it by itself. Now, what do I mean by inverse operations? Well, inverse operations means basically, okay, what are inverse operations? Here's an example. Right, if I have addition, well, what's the opposite of addition? Well, the opposite of that is subtraction. So I'll group these together. If we have multiplication, I'll put an x for times. Well, the opposite of that is division. So whenever we see this, if you're adding a number to x, well, then to get x by itself, you subtract, and vice versa. Okay, let's look at the one-step equations. This is where we're adding or subtracting. So if you look at the first one, now the other thing I'm going to do, let's get in the habit of this, where the equal sign, I'm going to draw a line straight down. So I separate the left side and the right side. It's very important when we get up to problems that are like 3, 4, 5 steps that we're very neat, we're very organized, and we separate the left from the right side. All right, let's look where the x is. I'm only going to look at this left side. That's it. I don't care about the right side because the right side doesn't have the variable. Let's see if I can get rid of that. Yeah, there we get rid of the arrow. Okay. So if I just look at the left side right there, see how I'm subtracting 5 right here? So I want to do the opposite. So to get rid of that, I add 5. That's inverse operations. Okay, negative 5 plus 5, that cancels out. That's 0. So just like that, I get x by itself. And then I add 5 to the right side. So it's like a balance. Right? It's like a balance. If you add 5 pounds on the left side, you have to add 5 pounds on the right side. And then negative 13 plus 5, we did these, add negatives and positives. This should give us negative 8. And that's our answer. Okay, let's look at number 2. Now, number 2, the only thing I'm looking at here is I'm looking at the right side now. I don't care about this negative 2. All I care about is that right side because that has the x. So if I have this plus, so then I do the opposite, I subtract 4. So 4 minus 4 cancels out just like that. I have x on the right side by itself. Then I subtract 4 on the left side. So negative 2 minus 4 gives me negative 6. That's my answer. Okay, if I look at 3, kind of throw a little curveball in here. See how we have this minus? You might look at it right away and say, oh, well, we have to add, but you're subtracting a negative. Remember, add a line, change the sign. So this really becomes negative 8 equals x plus 4. Then it's real easy. Then you subtract 4 both sides. And then we have x equals, let's see here, negative 8 minus 4 gives us negative 12. Okay, we throw some fractions in. Let's see here, fractions. Now, the good thing about 4, the denominators are the same. Right, I just look at the right side here. That's just what I look at. Since it's minus 2/7, I add 2/7 to both sides. This cancels, so I have x by itself. I add 2/7 here. Now, if I add these right here, if you have the same denominator for the fractions, you keep those the same. And then I just add this 2 and this 5, which gives me 7. Well, 7 over 7 is just 1. So that's my answer. Okay, number 5, let's do this one also. First thing I see, it's just like number 3. We can add a line, change the sign. So what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to subtract 2/3. Now this isn't as easy here. I'm just going to erase this right here to give me more space. This isn't as easy because the denominators are not the same. So this is what I have. I have 4/9 minus 2/3. I want to find the least common denominator. Well, least common multiple of 9 and 3 is 9. So 4/9 I leave the same. This 3, I have to multiply this by 3 to give me this 9. So I multiply this top by 3 and I get 6. So now I'm going to have y equals, I'm going to have that same denominator of 9 because these are both the same here. And then 4 minus 6, well, that gives me -2. So my answer is -2/9. Okay, let's keep going here. Multiplying and dividing. Alright, let's look at this. Let's look at 6. 6, I look at the left side. Now this is -4x. That means I'm multiplying. So I do the opposite. I use inverse operations. So that means I divide by that number. So I'm going to divide by -4. Oh, forgot to put the line down. The -4's cancel, so I get x to equal -1/4. There's my answer. Okay, if I look at 7, now what's new is this fraction bar right there. That fraction bar means division. So I have to do the opposite. So I'm going to multiply both sides by -5. Multiply this -30 by -5. Okay, these -5s, this is like say -5 or 1, these cross cancel, they go away. So just like that I get x by itself. And on the other side, -30 times 5, the negatives are going to cancel out, and I'm going to get 150. Okay, I'm going to skip down to 10. You guys can do 8 and 9 on your own. Number 10 is a little bit different. I have 3/5 x, so that means 3/5 times x. Now I can do this. You don't have to take this down. I can divide by 3/5, but this is the same if you multiply by 5/3. Okay, it's the same exact thing. So this is what I'm going to do. Okay, and I'll probably go over this again in class tomorrow. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. For reciprocal, I just flip the fraction. So I flip 3/5, it becomes 5/3. Now why do I do that? Because when I multiply, the 3's cross cancel, the 5's cross cancel. Oops. Let's see here. Little technical difficulties here. Alright, let's do this again. Alright, okay. So I multiply this by 5/3. 5's cross cancel, 3's cross cancel. So just like that, I have x by itself. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply this by 5/3, the -24. Now let's show the work for this. So I have -24 times 5/3. Now it's real important when you multiply fractions, line up the numerators and denominators. -24 is the same as -24/1. Then I can cross cancel. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 24 8 times. So then we have -8 times 5, which is -40. So that's our answer there. Okay, let's go to the back side. Alright, now we're going to add in another step here. Okay, now we're going to add 2 steps, and a lot of this you guys still should have seen before. Now when we add in more than one step, now I always said we use inverse operations. So kind of when we did PEMDAS, we're going to go the opposite of PEMDAS. Let's see here. Here, let's look. You're multiplying here and you're adding. Well, if you did PEMDAS, you would multiply first. But since I'm kind of undoing this, I want to cancel everything out. I'm going to do the opposite. So I want to get rid of this +3 first. So I'm going to subtract 3. Cancels out. Subtract 3 there. Okay, the right side, 48 minus 3 is 45. The left side's 3x. And then since I'm multiplying 3 and x, that means I do the opposite. I divide by 3. And 3 goes into 45 15 times. So that's my answer there. Okay, let's go 12. 12, I see fraction bar. I am dividing and then I'm adding. So I do the opposite. I'm going to get rid of this adding -2. So since this is negative, I'm going to add 2 to it. Because that's the same thing as saying minus 2. That cancels. I add 2 here. So 3 plus 2 is 5. And then I have negative x over 3. Now to get rid of this negative x over 3, I'm going to multiply everything by, let's see, since I'm dividing by 3, I'm going to multiply by 3. But I also want to get rid of this negative, so I'm going to keep the negative with it. So what happens is the 3 cancels out, and the negatives cancel out. So I have positive x. So I'm going to put this up here. And then I multiply this by 3. Excuse me, by negative 3. And then 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. All right. What I want you to do 13, and I think from the first page it was like 8, 9. Do those on your own. 14 and 15 we're going to go over in class tomorrow.